Most of the commentators that I deal with in terms of what I listen to, what I read, and who I speak to are all pretty convinced that America is slowly getting there, and to watch and to see the actual increase. Again, we've had an increase in the last year-on-year figures of 7.86%. Now that might not seem like a lot of money when you're only talking about a property that's increased from $30,000 odd, but it is an increase, and we feel that as things move forward, the chances of capital growth over the next 5 to 7 to 10 years are very real and very attainable. Again, all the properties that we buy in two major areas, on the east and the west side. Again, if Jennifer is able to find a headset and able to come on, she'll explain that in a little bit more detail, as to, she knows the areas obviously better than me. But we do stick to those areas where we are close to. I mean, as an example, St. John's Hospital is a very large area. DMC, Detroit Medical Center. I've watched the growth in that in terms of the construction that has been, how it's been built up over the last 12 months now. It's quite incredible to see. So a lot of the houses that we look for and a lot of the areas are well within those areas for creating the tenants for people who work in the hospitals, in the universities, that sort of thing. One of the good things about Detroit is that I don't think there's too many areas that are actually far away from major roads. It's no good me talking about some of the ones that I know quite well. I've traveled up and down 96 and a couple of them so many times I actually feel I know my way around Detroit a little bit. But Detroit's got a very good system. One of the amusing things to me is that roads in Detroit can be about 20 to 25 miles long. You can go from one side to the other, and many times we've crisscrossed a road. For example, I'll take any road really, and I'll say, oh, so we must be close to so-and-so, and they'll say, no, that's about 10 miles away. But because the road is so long, it's about 20 odd miles long, you can be on the west side and you're still crossing the same road that you bought a house in 5 months ago. It's quite different to here in Australia, where a lot of our roads, you know, never go much past a mile or two, or a kilometre or two.
I'll just see if Jen, I know you've got a microphone on you. Do you want to add anything to that?
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yep,
I can hear you, Jen.
Yep.
Okay, I'm sorry, I can't find my microphone right now.
No worries. I think you're loud and clear while we're talking.
Okay, well, I would like to reiterate that the job market here is steadily increasing, and there is a large volume of jobs in the medical industry here, and the automotive industry. CompuWare is downtown, and you can see just a change in the job atmosphere, that the economy now, compared to 3 or 4 years ago, has seen significant growth. Being from Detroit, living in Metro Detroit, and working in Detroit, you can just see and you can see the change, that the jobs are more prevalent, and that people are at a better standpoint in their life, that the unemployment level is less.
That's great, Jen. It's nice to have someone there on the there that's actually can vouch for and say what's going on. So that's great. I'll get Alistair to call you back in when you want to add anything else during the presentation.
Sure.
Okay, Alistair. So that's sort of why Metro Detroit. Tell us about your sort of properties you deal with and why.
Okay. Well, mainly 3 and 4 bedroom homes, which is, that suits the family. Multifamily is really what we call a duplex. The multifamilies that we have normally sit one on top of the other, not next to each other, which is what's more common here in Australia. We haven't found that to be the most successful in some areas. simply because you might have, as an example, a family downstairs who doesn't like the music that the people play upstairs, or vice versa. So we've really started staying away from the multifamily, but we have started looking at more of the duplex style, but again, we haven't found too many in what we really like. So we've stuck mainly to the 3 and 4 bedroom house. Something that's, I think it's quite important that people understand that in these houses, when you see the pictures on it, every house has got a basement, and basements are huge. I mean, it's not just a small little room. It's like the whole underneath the house. Where we've got one house, Jen, maybe you can remember. You're very good at that. Which house we got where it's got the whole big bar downstairs, and it's got a games room, and it's got a toilet, bathroom, shower, the whole lot. It's massive downstairs. It's an entire.
That would be Roselawn.
That's the one, Roselawn. Yeah.
Right, and it's totally finished too. So, like for example, my house that I live in, I have a total. My first floor, I have a duplicate in the basement, totally finished, and that people in Michigan are just used to houses with basements because it doubles your living area.
So when we talk about 3 and 4 bedroom houses, it's important to understand that in most houses, in fact in all houses, I'd say that there is another toilet downstairs, which we don't use. The real estate community does not use the basement in terms of other bedrooms and toilets. Now, in some occasions we have a full shower. Occasionally there's an extra bath in there, but there's always a toilet, and that's where you have your washing machine and your dryer. And very often people have an office down there. They have bedrooms down there. We've got probably, I don't know, again, Jen, you can help me out here, but probably there must be, I don't know, I'd say I can remember maybe 6 to 10 houses that actually have a fireplace downstairs in the basement. So when you look at a 3 bedroom house, it's actually a lot bigger downstairs as well, which is not counted. Again, we try and choose the neighborhoods. We do have certain postcodes that we deal in. If we gave you a list, you'd see again, I think there are 12 or 13 at my last count, I thought, of the neighborhoods that we use. We don't. It's not just willy-nilly, just any old house. We do stick to certain areas that we like because they are close to the amenities. Again, as I say, either to a hospital, to a university, or something along those lines. We try and find places that have got good schooling, the busing, that sort of thing. And every house is renovated to meet the USA Government Tenancy Code. So that's the Detroit City Council, that's the ACR, and of course, again, Jim Carberry, our construction person who does all the renovations and the building and the maintenance on it. He is a qualified builder, and he brings that up to the standard required by the government for Section 8 tenants.
Great work. Now we were talking the other day. It's not an overnight get-rich scheme. It's working through like most property investments are. It's a mid to long-term view. You mentioned already in the webinar you weren't expecting the rises to start so early. You weren't expecting them for 5 years from when you first started. So the mid to long-term view, and then you can probably explain these again better than I can.
Well, Mark, you're 100% right. I mean, we've both been in property for a long time now, and I have never spoken to any client with a view to buying and selling a property inside 10 years is the term that I've always viewed. There's always, occasions when that can change and whatnot, but generally speaking, if you're looking at an investment of this type, then I am suggesting that you're looking at nothing less than 7 years. I think that if you want the appreciation, if you want the yield, and the big point about what we're doing here is, as a financial planner, I was trying to give my client the best possible yield. So we do not take into account the capital appreciation in the return. It's there as part of our financial metrics. As we get a bit further down, you'll see that when we present that. So it's actually in there for you to see. But we don't take that into account. We talk about yield. We're saying if we can give you a 12+% return yield on an annual basis from the first year, which increases, we think that's a very good return. And we also take into account that if you look at the assumptions that we've got on our financial metrics, you notice that we give a very low increase in our rentals. And that's for two reasons. One is because the market is still slow, as well as it's now doing and starting to pick up. It's still very slow, and so we're still attracting the better class tenants. And we would rather go back to your tenant and say, look, if you sign for another 12 months, we won't put up the rent. That way, you get you get a continual rental for maybe 24 months or 36 months, as opposed to somebody who takes a 12-month term. Then you want to put the rent up by $25 or $30, and you're going to have a tenant or you won't have a tenant for 30 days, or while we clean the house out and find a new tenant for you and put a new one in. So we do think that over the longer term, there is going to be obviously increases in rentals, and that's been portrayed in those financial metrics for you to see. The better properties than a few years ago, the whole reason that's in there is because we're getting more and more experience as to the areas and the houses, and also in the early days, nobody knows better than me, or not many people, the heartache that we've been through when people talked about Detroit. We have a commentator here. Some of you would have heard of him, the Barefoot Investor. I don't think he's a bad bloke, but he actually wrote a long story on Detroit. He arrived in midnight in a car without a GPS, and was stuck in the middle of Detroit, stopped, got out the car and said to somebody, hey, how do I get to so-and-so? And this guy said, just get in your car and get out of here, man. You won't get out alive, or something or other. And he said, I've never been so scared in my life. And I said, well, you know, he went looking for a property that had been advertised for $1. I said, well, what do you expect for $1? It doesn't matter where or who you are. What can you honestly expect for $1? So I wasn't that impressed with his writing, but even he's changed his views somewhat over the last 2 years. The properties that we're getting today, we certainly we're better equipped to find them. I think we are paying more for them, but they are better properties than perhaps that we might have started with a few years ago. I know I've got a couple of my own that, Jen, don't you dare laugh when you talk about Mark Twain, for example. Otherwise, you might not be getting your Christmas bonus, but that's another story. 15 to 18 months away from banks. Every time I go to the States, which is, I think I went 8 times last year or 7 times last year. Every time I go and I have a chat to our bank manager, Tim and Mindy, they've always said that this is the time frame that they feel that banks will then start lending. So if you've been a tenant for 2 years and you can show that you've got ownership, which obviously you can do, and you can show from your tenancy records that you've been receiving rent for the 24 months. The banks will then lend up to 60 to 65% loan to value ratio against that property. Our strategy on that would either be to use that to reinvest if the yields are still available, if not, to bring that back and then to repay yourself here on the money that you might have borrowed to buy in the first place.
That's superb. Thanks, Alistair. Then we'll cover a bit of that again a little bit later on. We'll just go through a couple photos of before renovations and after renovations photos. I'm not sure if you or Jen will be the best to explain these.